Hello, soulmates. Welcome to our waist shaping class. And of course, we're going to be shaping everywhere that needs to be shaped. Now, for us to begin, we're going to start with the shoulder dart. Okay, basically, there is a shoulder dart in this pattern, so we're going to be inserting our shoulder dart. Now, the shoulder we're working with is 12 centimeter, but what we have here is about 15.5 centimeter. So what we are going to do is to find the midpoint of this shoulder line from this NP to the SP. Find the midpoint. So I'm going to fold my tape over to the SP and mark the midpoint. So once I have the midpoint here, from this NP, I'm going to mark half of my measurement. 12 divided by 2 will give me 6, so I'll mark 6 to where it stops. And from this SP, I'm also going to mark 6, making it 12. So what is inside here is the dart I'm going to hold for the back. So I'm going to connect this center point to about 9 centimeter down, following the slant the way it is, 9 centimeter. And I'll be connecting these two lines to that point. So here we have our back dart, right? When sewing this dart, you can decide to sew it, you can decide to suppress it into the armhole, or decide to remove it entirely. So that is our back dart. Now the next step we're taking is to get our slanted CB. To get our slanted CB, from the CB at the waistline, we're going to mark 2 centimeter. We're going to mark 2 centimeter and connect it to this back line. So connect it to this back line. Make sure you don't cut into the back line so that your back measurement does not become short, right? Now this space I have here, remember I added ½ inch to my UP, and that is just going to take care of it. This is not even up to ½ inch, this is 0.25. So it's just going to still be my measurement. Nothing has gone wrong on that part. So this is my slanted CB. Now at this part, the side CB, I'm going to go in by 2 centimeter. 2 centimeter, and I'm going to connect it. I want to curve it in this way from the UP to this 2 centimeter. I hope my hand is not affecting it. So I'm going to be curving it this way. Now at this front side, I'm going to mark 1.5 centimeters for the outer seam. 1.5 centimeter. We're using centimeter to mark this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to keep my curve this way. Once I connect to the bust, I'll then turn it over and connect. So my keeping it this way is just so I don't get to lose um any measurements. You can still decide to keep it like this, that's fine, but you realize that you're losing some parts around the bust area. So whichever way, I've connected this way to the bust, and then I'm going to flip this over and connect to the 1.5 centimeter. So I'll finish this line up. I'm not going to use a heavy curve, almost like a straight line. I'll finish it up to this point. I'll finish this part up to this point, and this other side trying to remove my hand so you can see exactly what I'm doing. Okay, so this is what we have. Now at the center front, we're going to go in from the center front by 1.5, but by um, 0.5, 1 centimeter, sorry. From the center front, we're going to go in by 1 centimeter. But before then, in case you feel that your front waistline is not where the front is supposed to be, what we're going to do is to come down from this waistline by 1 centimeter. Okay, from this other side we're to come down by 0.5 centimeter, and the back side also were to come down by 0.5 centimeter. I'm not going to be doing this on my pattern, but I just have to do it so that in case it's not what you want, you can do this. I will not be using the line, but I'm going to connect it just to show us how it works. This is so because when you wear your dress, and assuming you have a cut around this area, if your waistline is not where it's supposed to be because of the bust, here I have 17.1 from this line, 17.11, while my waist measurement is 17. So this is just going to be where I want it to be, right? But in case you feel that you have a longer waist at the front, to come down by 1 centimeter, connect to the half 0.5 centimeter and 0.5 centimeter at the side CV, and then we're not going to go down by anything here. We're just going to connect the lines together. You can see what I'm going to do. Slant it to the point. This is where this is. This 0.5, 0.5, so the two of them on the same point. Then this 0.5, we're going to connect it to the back line. You can see the way it is. So this is going to accommodate your front length. If you feel it is still not okay, you can still reduce it a bit, but make sure it doesn't look too slanted, right? When you reduce it, there's no need reducing this part anymore. It can just come a little to the front. So I hope that is taken. Now, if you're using the second line, your front slant is going to be on that line. Your waist shaping is going to be on that line. So from where I'm going to take my measurements, I'm going to mark 0 1 centimeter, not 0.5, 1 centimeter at this point. This is necessary when you're making a design that has a slit in front. You have to follow this slit to give it a very nice shape, and we're going to be connecting this towards our bust point, right? But whereby the dress is going to be closed at the front, you're to ignore this, or maybe transfer it to another place. You have to ignore it. But if the dress is going to have opening, you're just going to follow that slant and give your dress a nice shape. So these are just the basic shaping that we need. The next thing we're going to do is to take our proper measurements. Whatever that is left, we're going to distribute it. So to do that, I'm going to mark my bust span measurements, and I'm going to follow my CF line. I'm ignoring this 1 centimeter here. I'm following my bust span from the CF 3.5 inches. At the hip line also, I'm going to mark the 3.5 inches. At the bust line also, I'm going to mark the 3.5 inches. And I'll connect it on a straight line. I hope this is clear. Now at the back, to get our dart line for the back, we're going to be dividing our back line into two. Here I have 20 centimeter, and I'm going to be dividing it into two, and that will give me 10 centimeter. So I'll not mark it here. I'm going to mark it from this point, 10 centimeter. Now looking at this, if you feel like it is very close to the CB, because at this point we are still going to come in to take our dart intake, you can decide to use your bust span if that is better. You can use your bust span to get the measurements. And of course, they look exactly the same, or even this one seems to be bigger. If the two of them is also looking very close to the CB, you can decide to divide this line into two and use the midpoint. But at this point, I'm going to be using this back line divided by 2, and that will give me 10 cm from not the slanted CB, from the straight CB. I'm going to mark 10 centimeter. I'll equally mark the same thing from at the hip line. And at this point too, I'm going to mark the same thing. And I will connect the two of them, the three of them, on a straight line. I hope this is making sense to you. Now to shape our waist, we're going to get our waist measurement, our waist circumference, and divide it into two. So whatever waist circumference you're working with, divide it into two. Once you divide into two, you have the option of adding 2 centimeters to your measurement before dividing, so that you can have ease around the waist. But whereby you do not need the ease around the waistline, you can just use your actual measurement. But if you think that your measurement is quite tight, if you took your measurement tight, it's advisable you add the ease so that you can have some breathing space. But whatever measurement you decide to use, that's okay. So waist divided by 2, whatever it gives us, we're going to, so once this is done, we're going to be shaping our waist. Now what we're going to do is to get our waist circumference. If you feel like the waist is quite tight, you're to add 2 centimeters to it to make it free. But if you want to use your waist circumference the way it is, that's okay. Divide your waist circumference into two, plus the amount of ease that you want, which is about 2 centimeters. Waist divided by 2 plus 2 centimeters if you're going to be adding ease. But whereby you're not adding the ease, just divide the measurements into two. Okay, so my waist divide by 2, I'm going to start marking it from this slanted CB. So I'm going to start from the slanted CB. In this case, I'm working with the waist of 81, that is about 32 inches. 81. So I'm going to measure from the slanted CB down to this um, outer seam here, or the side seam. Whatever it gives me there, I'm going to hold it and shift it over to the front outer seam and continue my measurement to where my measurement stops. So 81 divided by 2, I have 40.5. So this is where 40.5 stops. I'm going to mark it, right? I'm marking where the 40.5 stops. So I will take my tape and measure what is remaining down to the 1 cm slanted CF, and I have 8 centimeter left. So this 8 centimeter, I'm going to distribute it around this waist. So I can decide to share it between the front and the back, but definitely the front is going to take in more dart than the back. So I can give the front 5 centimeter and the back 3 centimeter, making it 8 centimeter. So I need to share it around this place. Now what I'm going to do, I'm giving here 5 and 3. So coming over to this back dart line, I'm going to mark 1 centimeter on both sides, 1 cm on both sides of the dart line, right? Well, I have, that is 2 cm. We're left with 1 cm, and I'm going to mark it along this line. So for the back, my measurement is exhausted. It's just to connect it to where I'm supposed to connect it. So to connect this, I'm going to go up by 13 centimeter from the waistline, 13 centimeter from the waistline up, and from down I'm going to measure 15 centimeter down, and that is where I'm going to be connecting my dart intake. And I'll connect this other part. Then at this point too, I'm going to connect or reconnect this to my new line. I will leave it here. If you are doing a half scale, you can just cut it. If you're going to be doing full scale, of course what you're doing is a full scale, I'll be connecting it back to this place. But let's not just have plenty lines for now. Now we've exhausted the back tightening. Now for the front tightening, we have 5 centimeter, and we're going to be sharing this 5 centimeter. Now at the waist, that for the front, we can have 3 centimeter and above, right? 3 centimeter and above. So here I'm going to be marking. So at this point, I decided to mark 2 cm on both sides. You can choose to mark 3.5 on both sides, and then mark 1.5 here. It is okay. You can decide to do what I've just done, but the point is our measurements are not the same. So what matters is you being able to share your dart very well. So to connect this, I'm going to come down from the bust point by 2 centimeter, 2 cm. I'll come down from the bust to connect this. You can do 1 inch. Now connect this other side. Now at the lower part, you can still do the same thing we did at the back. Come down by 15 cm and connect this. Now note that measurements are not the same, measurements differs, and what works for one person might not work for every other person. So the point is, once you draft, we are going to make a copy, and when you sew it, you begin to see if what you've done is actually okay on you or not. At least for the first time, you're to wear it and see how it looks on you, if there will be any adjustments, and that is what is known as the fitting session. So here I'm going in by 1 cm. That is the inner side seam. And I'm going to be connecting it the same way I connected before. Don't let the lines to confuse you. It is still the same dots that we're marking. Don't let anything to confuse you. If you have any question, do well to ask your question, and we will be glad to answer you. Okay, so while sewing this basic bodice, we might not be needing this 1 cm like I explained before, because the front is going to be on fold, it's not going to be open. This is especially necessary when you're making something like a shirt, a jacket, or anything that has opening in front. So basically this is what we need for our basic bodies. Now if you're going to be cutting this out, we're equally going to slant it back to the hip line this way, or use a straight line to connect it so that you don't have any form of bulge at the front. That is if we're going to be making use of this, we have to connect it back to the hip area. But since we're not going to be making use of it at this point, we're just, if you don't want to use it as is, you can just suppress it into this part, take it away from somewhere. It is just 1 cm. You can take 0.5, 0.5 from anywhere around the pattern and it will fit you. But in this case, I'm going to be using it as is along the waistline. Okay, so I'll just ignore it. Now this is what we have for our waist shaping. The next place we're going to be working on is to close this um front dart to get our through shoulder line. Now to close our front shoulder line, we're going to pick this dart. We're going to pick the paper from the dart line, not from our bust span line. From the dart line, that is the second leg from here, we're going to pick it up and fold it this way along this first dart leg, and fold it 2 cm down where we connected it so that it does not continue to fold, right? And we're going to fold it over to this second dart leg. Make sure your paper is well arranged. Make sure you're not folding where you're not supposed to fold. Everything should stop at the dart intake. You don't have to overlap it more than the dart intake. So once you have something like this, I'm going to, is either you get your ruler and pencil to mark it out first, and then use your tracing wheel to trace it out. So this is what I'm going to be doing. On this line, I'm going to use my tracing wheel to trace it out. So I'm going to trace it this way on the line that you just ruled. Because if paper is folded under, that is why we're ruling on that part. We're tracing on that part that is folded under. So once you trace it, you have to remove it and open it up. You're going to see dotted lines in form of a V shape at the upper part, right? You can just trace it out. So this is what we have. Okay, now once you close it over, this becomes the true shoulder line, no longer this slant that we have here. This line becomes our shoulder line. So if you're working on anything that has to do with closing the shoulder dart, this is where your shoulder line is going to be. And when you sew your dart, assuming we've just sewn it the way it is, this is where the dart is going to be. So to avoid confusion, you can just rule out your or mark out the dart area so that when transferring on your fabric, you will not be confused as per which part is the dart and which is not the dart. Okay, you can just mark them out. If you feel like this dart here is quite big, I could also decide to take um the whole of this place 3.5 and keep the remaining here, but whichever way, the point is that we don't want to concentrate our dart on one position. We want to share everything, but the center dart line takes more darts in some cases, depending on the amount of darts that you have. Some of you might not have the same amount of that, some might be less, some might be more. So the point is to share it in a way that everywhere around the that around the pattern gets a maximum um, that. So basically this is what we need to draft our basic bodies using the Natalie Bray method. And I want to believe that this class has been explanatory enough for you to understand. But in case you feel like you do not understand so well, do not murmur. Feel free to ask questions and ask questions that are in line with the class and you receive an answer. Okay, so in the next class, we're going to be transferring to the fabric, and of course, this class does not cover showing you how to sew it or show you how to transfer it while you use your machine and join them together. Okay, so see you in the next class. Bye.